I saw this on Instagram and it really, really resonated with me. A girl was saying, people aren't committing. If I meet someone and they say, you know what, I'm not ready to be in a committed exclusive relationship, that's fine. So what are you committed to? Because are you committed to just having sex? Are you committed to dinner every Friday? Are you committed to getting to know each other via text message because you potentially feel more comfortable talking to someone via an app rather than in person? It happens too. What are you committed to?
Yo guys, welcome back to another episode on my channel. I'm sitting in this spot, which means I have a great conversation lined up for you today. I say that all the time, but you wouldn't be here otherwise if I didn't. All right. And I do have a great guest. She's no stranger to the podcast online space. So without further ado, please welcome Shorty to the episode. Shorty, welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
How are you today?
I'm good.
You feeling all right?
I'm feeling fantastic, actually. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, what I like to do, what I want to start with is tell us your name, what you do, and tell us one thing about you that a guy should know if he wants to date you.
Oh, God. Okay. So my name is Shorty. My real name is Yamuna, but most people don't remember that. And Shorty's just been around for a long time. So that's me.
Nice.
I am a master life coach, clinical hypnotherapist, and NLP practitioner, which is a lot.
Yeah.
But I help my clients with many things: fears, phobias, confidence. NLP is all about neuro-linguistic programming, which is, again, a mouthful. But yeah, I help people rephrase their limiting beliefs, and I help people understand their deep core values, and heal, basically, any type of healing.
Nice.
And something that any guy should know. I don't really believe in monogamy. Maybe that's something.
Interesting.
Maybe that's something to start with.
Have you always felt that way?
I think inherently I did, because my mother was quite a free spirit, shall we say.
Okay.
What I've learned over the last, I sort of maybe 5-6 years, I think, is that monogamy can work for many couples and is something very beautiful and very sacred. But relationships have changed so much, even in the last 50-60 years.
Yes.
And what we want from relationships is very different to what we essentially needed and went for like 100 years ago. 100 years ago, you were marrying because, you know, this prince needed a princess, and, you know, this farmer needed cows, and one person had land and one person had cows and stuff.
That's right.
Now we look for romance, and we look for passion, and we look for exclusivity, and so many more things, you know. We look for intimacy, I would like to think. And there's something they say is, into me is into me you see, or into me I see.
Yeah, I think that was Esther Perel. I think I heard her say that.
Yeah.
Into me you see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was watching something on her yesterday.
Yes.
And I think I know many couples, and the ones that last the test of time started monogamous, but then there comes a point in a relationship where you can be honest and say, you know what, this isn't really enough anymore. And those couples that have ventured out into a safe space together, they seem to me, on the outside, because you never really know, they seem to me the ones that have it kind of right. Also, if you look at statistics, divorce rates are really, really high. About 40 to 50%, I think, in the Western world.
Very true.
But when you have polyamorous relationships or ethical and non-monogamous relationships, they seem to be blossoming, I think. From the minute that I stepped my little foot into the dating scene, I realized that people are much more open to discuss what they truly want.
Yes.
That's what I experienced anyway. Maybe that's not everybody's experience.
No, I hear that. And you're so right. I think because the dating landscape and the landscape in which we find people now and have access to has changed so much that, for some people it can get to a point where they're like, oh, they just want to try something new. And that's not necessarily a lack of love for their partner. Though I think for a lot of couples, if one partner brings it up, the other one can feel like it's a rejection of them.
Yeah, I do understand that. And I think in relationships, when you can have a safe space to air that feeling. Say, you know what, I'm feeling rejected here.
Yes.
What can we do about that? And then find out where that rejection actually comes from. And I would venture a guess that it usually always comes from childhood, that there was something in your childhood where you felt rejected and you felt insecure, and that void comes into relationships later in life. You know, the blueprint that our caregivers give us when we're children, that's what we then bring to relationships, and that can also sometimes mean a lot of trauma.
I hear that, and I do think that's true in a sense that it can come from there. I do think there's another side where if two people are monogamous and they've been happy being monogamous, right? And if one person's like, oh, I kind of want to open up and try something, I think the other person can feel, so I was enough for all these years, but now I'm not enough anymore. So what would you say to that partner?
Again, if you can have a space to openly say, maybe that person does say, yeah, I'm sorry, it's not enough anymore. And that can hurt.
Yeah.
But that's the truth.
Right.
You know, if that's their truth, that's their truth.
Yeah.
But also, you know, like, let's not say, if there's a couple, for example, that says, okay, let's venture into a space where we might think about bringing other people in or going somewhere else. Let's talk about what we're happy with.
Yes.
Like, because some couples, I would say, they're happy to have someone join, you know, because everything is here.
Yeah.
But maybe there are some other couples that say, do you know what? I don't really want to see it, but why don't you go out and do it?
Yeah. And
again, if it gets sticky, let's talk about why it got sticky.
So what would you prefer for you?
Oh God.
Wait, let me ask first. Have you had a polyamorous open relationship before?
No, I have not. I have not. No, my marriage was predominantly monogamous.
But you would be open to it.
Yeah, I feel like I don't want to set any boundaries on a relationship that I don't have yet. You know, there are certain things that I know that I want in a relationship, like respect.
Yep.
You know, all of those yummy feelings that you get when you're with someone. But let's not put anything on it. I think if I met someone and I was so into them, I think you naturally, wouldn't want to go with anyone anyway.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, if the relationship then goes on for 5 or 6 years and something changes, the dynamics change or anything, then that's something to look at. And it's not a bad thing. It should be a good thing to evolve with your partner.
Yes, I agree. So what if you met a guy and you really like him, right? And you're like you said, you're like, oh, I'm really into him. I like what he brings. I like how he makes me feel. I love the connection that we have. And for you, you're like, you don't really want to open yourself up to anyone else, right? But he's like, look, you have my time and attention and everything, but I still may want to have physical flings elsewhere, right? How would you feel about that? Would you accept that, or would you be like...
So this is where my friends think that I'm a bit crazy, and even I have thought, you know, why am I like this? But I'm not a jealous person, and if I'm with someone that's making me feel safe and respected and our time together is very sacred, then I'm not really jealous of what he does elsewhere. I don't want to prevent anyone that I'm with from living their best life. So for example, when I was in my long-term relationship, he was in a position where he was touring with an A-lister. And I did have a conversation with him, and I said to him, listen, do you know what? If you're on the other side of the planet at this fabulous party with all of these amazing creative people, and you happen to have a connection with someone, I don't want you to not have a good experience because I'm across the world feeling shitty about something. Yeah. Go and have that experience, and don't let our relationship mean that you can't have another nice experience. I'm not jealous of that person. I'm wife, I'm queen, I'm mother, I'm the best friend, I'm everything. And yeah, I don't think that ever happened. I also said to him, listen, if it happens, just don't tell me. I don't really want to know.
You don't need,
maybe, now if maybe that would change. If I was in a relationship, maybe I would want to know, because I'd want them to share with me if that's my best friend as well.
Okay.
Maybe I'm that secure within our relationship that you can tell me that you had a wonderful experience with someone else and it doesn't take anything away from this space.
Yeah, I think that takes such a level of emotional and spiritual maturity to get to that point. And it's okay. That's not for everyone. I think, I talk to a lot of women, and I think a lot of women don't like the idea of having to share a man physically.
It's just physically, isn't it? Because they're sharing their time with someone. There was a point last year where I was feeling a little bit of jealousy in a situation, and I really had to sit and think about it. I was like, what is it that I don't like? What am I jealous of? Because first of all, I wasn't sure if he was with another woman, but if he was, I was like, okay, well, what is it? And then I really thought about it, and I thought, I'm not jealous of her. The only thing I would be jealous of is that someone else has his time.
Yes.
And I don't.
Yes.
That's what I'm jealous of.
Yep, 100%.
He was kind to me. He was nice to me. We had a really lovely time together. I want him to go and live his best life.
Yeah.
It's not always personal as well. That's the thing. And I think a lot of us, we take it personal.
Yeah.
And the truth is the right person will come along at the right time. And if you're vibrating on that kind of frequency, not out of I'm desperate to meet someone, the right people, they do come.
I agree. So do you think men and women show their real investment differently? Because you said it wasn't the physical aspect that you're jealous of, it was the time. And is it fair to say that, like you said, you have his time, his affection, you're his wife, the home, the kids and everything. He can have his experiences so long as it doesn't compromise your position in his life. Does that make sense?
Well, in my marriage, I didn't feel like anything really compromised it. I always felt queen.
Exactly.
I did.
Yes.
I never felt like that there was anyone else, and I really never felt like I was competing with anyone else.
Yes.
Again, now every relationship is different, and it should be like that. You should be able to take away the good things from your relationship, learn from the bad things, and then hopefully just show up as a different person in a different relationship.
Yeah.
We're always changing. That when people say like, oh, you've changed. Well, thank God. I want to change all the time. And that's probably my biggest fear, is staying the same and staying mundane and being in a headspace where you feel like you don't have anything else to learn.
Yes, I hear that. So on that, how would you say is different in how you would date today to the you that was, let's say, 10 years ago?
Oof. I'm going to go a bit more than 10 actually, but I'll go 15, which is like before my marriage.
Sure.
But I was, I suppose, very grounded into my conditioning, which was very weird in itself because I grew up half Indian and very, very traditional. And the other side is German and very like open and free love from my hippie mom.
Yeah.
I thought that I should get married, have children, provide for my husband, and be taken care of.
Sure.
And when I think of that now, I had all the right intentions, and I can be quite emotional about it because I look at who I was in my mid-20s, still very positive, and living my best life and stuff, but just quite naive. I don't believe now that, I'm a feminist, and some people think that feminist is like bra burning and like bashing men, but I believe that feminism at its root is about equality.
Yeah.
And I want to be equal in a marriage for different things. I want to celebrate our differences. There is masculine and feminine in each of us.
Very true.
And when each of us can acknowledge that we might have an unbalance, you know, that's a space where stuff can get interesting, if you will.
Yeah,
you
of
know.
course.
But yeah, so I just think, you know, my mindset has evolved. I have changed, and I have become more spiritual as I have grown older.
Yeah.
I just think something will come along and it will all click into place. You know, people say like, oh, it was the right person but the wrong time. And no, none of that. None of that. Every person comes into your life for a specific reason.
Yeah.
And if you can take something from it and learn from it, then that's a great thing.
Yeah, I agree. What's something you'd like to bring to the conversation?
Let's see.
Something you want to ask?
I recently had a conversation with someone who I feel kind of looks at relationships just on paper. And he was like, you know, women look for this, and even if it's a really nice guy, if he doesn't have the flashy car and the watch, she's gonna, if it's an equal playing field, she's gonna go for the guy with the car and the watch.
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
I think what stage in life she's at plays a part, but as a general rule, who is she going to give the opportunity to? Yes, the guy who is presenting to be on a higher level than the other. I think that is true.
And when we have these conversations, like how much can we really take away from it? Because it's literally just on paper. I feel like when we talk about these things that are on paper,
yeah,
you're not taking into consideration any of the vibes, you know?
I agree.
Like, how do vibes...
Should I tell you what?
Yeah.
I think a big part of us falling for someone, or what we feel is falling for someone, is falling in love with the idea of who they are. And the idea of what it would be like to be with them. I think the more eligible a man is, the easier it is for women to fall in love with him. And the more attractive a woman is, the easier it is for men to fall in love with her. That's not saying you are only going to fall in love with the most successful man and you only fall in love with the most attractive woman. Because you're right, once you start to get to know each other and stuff, then you see if there's a genuine connection there, if there's a quote unquote vibe. But I think, and the example I'm going to use is the Tinder swindler, right? He presented to be this young, incredibly successful bachelor who had dozens of women just in love with him. Dozens of women looked at this man and was like, he is my person, right? And I don't think it's a coincidence that dozens of women say, this man is my person, and not the average guy who actually they would probably have a better connection with. And I think a lot of it is, like I said, they fall in love with the idea of who this person is and what this person can be for them.
Yeah. People see potential.
Yes.
You know, and I've been there.
Yeah, of course.
We've all been there. Yeah, I mean, charm has a really big part to play with the Tinder swindler as well. I mean,
Very
if
true.
he was like, you know, if he had no social skills or anything, he would never have been able to
100%. His social skills were like,
yeah,
they were super high for him to be doing that.
There's a lot of narcissistic traits.
100%. But then the irony is that a lot of things that might come with narcissism can be very attractive.
Narcissism is a spectrum, and I realized that last year as well. In
fact,
yeah? I have a beautiful artist friend, and she has a piece of art, and it says narcissism is a spectrum, and you're on it.
Yeah, I agree.
It's quite interesting, but
I also don't think there's something. I don't think there's any such thing as a selfless deed. I think everything we do does serve us in some way.
Yeah, and that makes sense actually. Also looking at NLP, neuro linguistic programming, because in NLP we say that every bad behavior comes from a positive intention. So even if you're
Interesting.
smoking crack, like the further down you go, you will find that you're doing it because you want to feel release. You want the pain
Yes.
to go away.
Yes.
So that makes perfect sense
D-
from
does it
a
ever happen the other way around? So a good thing comes from a bad.
well, yeah, again, like because we say like there are no failures, there are only lessons,
Mm.
right? You don't have to do anything because I'm very big on language. So everything I say, I'm very focused on how that comes across because words have meaning.
Very true.
The things that you say have power.
Yes.
Um, but if you can get your mindset to a place where you genuinely see that things are not happening, you know, just to you, they're happening for you for your greater good, and every opportunity is an opportunity to learn something.
Yeah,
Every failure.
I agree. With your practice, do you feel that any of it translates into the dating life of the people you work with?
The people I work with, absolutely, because one of my biggest passions and something I'm really, you know, really trying to educate people on is
Yeah.
the aspect of conscious parenting. How
Mm.
you or parent has a reflection now on how you are potentially parenting or how you are in a relationship. So even if your parent died, for example, you still have a relationship with that parent. It's a lack of relationship,
Sure.
but there is still a relationship there. There is potentially a void,
Yeah.
and then you can go on to trying to fill that void in your relationships.
Yeah.
So, yes, everything I do with my clients, I try and highlight, or I will definitely bring to the conversation what their relationship was with their mother, what their relationship was with their father, and what the relationship of the parents together was. Because
Yeah.
somewhere within that dynamic, somewhere within those dynamics, you are going to find potentially how you are translating your relationship to someone.
I completely agree. It's funny because, if you've grown up with your parents and whatever kind of relationship you have with them, sometimes I think even sometimes, I don't know if it's the better relationship you have, the more you find this, or the worse. I think if you have any kind of relationship with them, but as you become an adult into the world, you realize you're more like your parents than you realize.
You are. And like
You're like, oh my
like
gosh, that's so
why
my
would
dad
you
or my
not
mom.
be?
Yeah, yeah,
Like
it's
it's not
true.
just genetics. You don't just look like them. You have all
Yes.
of their genetic traits, and the
Yeah.
environment that your parents provided for you
Mm.
is going to be potentially most likely, well, you go either way, right? So like if your mom is like super super messy, you will either
Yes.
be really messy or you will be super
Super
neat
clean.
freak, it
Yeah.
depends.
Very true.
But yeah, so
What would be something you would want to ask? I would say all men. M- Yeah. What's something you'd like to ask all men? What's something would you ask all men?
men,
Yeah,
women,
men.
men.
And then we can go for women.
Hmm. It's just such a broad question.
Yeah.
What would I want to ask men? Potentially, what healed you or what hurt you? Those are things that I find interesting.
Mm.
Again, I don't really do small talk, and maybe that is a good thing, and maybe I can do small talk if I need to, but
I get that.
I don't really do small talk. And if I were to meet someone, the small talk is going to be a very small portion of that date or that conversation. I do
I hear that.
genuinely want to know, like, what makes you tick, what hurt you, what healed you. That's what I would ask.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that. Do you think we've all been hurt in some way?
Yeah, I would. I'd love to meet someone who says I've never been hurt. I would really challenge them. I'd be like, what kind of experiment do you come from?
Yeah, literally.
Because, we've all been hurt,
Yeah.
and a lot of times our parents hurt us unintentionally because they're hurt too.
Yeah.
Another thing you realize as you grow older is that your parents didn't have it figured out either.
Mm.
Like, I just, I was very judgmental of my mother when I was young because she was an alcoholic and, you know, she had troubles with men. And I just didn't understand it. But I grew up, you know, going to an international school with many privileged children who came from sort of white picket fence families.
Yes.
So I guess it was within my environment to think that that was normal and that my mother was not. But now in hindsight, I've grown to love my mother so much and completely understand that she was always her authentic self. And I really thank her for that, because now it gives me the courage to authentically be myself.
100%.
You know,
you don't have to share this if you don't want to, but how would you say, maybe seeing how your mom was with men, how would you say that impacted how you dated when you were younger, if it did at all?
The thing is, I saw my mother heartbroken, and I saw her hopelessly devoted to men that she shouldn't have been. And I definitely have followed in that path.
Okay.
However, at the core, she's still authentically herself, and I don't think she regrets any of it. And neither do I. And my mother is a poet, an actress, a director, and all of her pain has been transformed into art.
Yeah.
And that's inspiring and amazing, I think.
I mean, I resonate with that, you know. I completely understand that. It's interesting how everyone has their vice. And it's like we all, maybe because of the things we experience in life, we all have to have avenues of release. For some people it's alcohol, for some people it's sex, some people it's drugs, some people it's art, sometimes it's a multitude.
Sometimes it's the gym.
Sometimes it's
and
the
gym is a really healthy one.
It's a really healthy one. I can advocate for that.
You know, I mean, everything can be addictive. If you look at it from a neurological point of view, like one person can be addicted to, you know, a drug, but another person can also be addicted to money and success. And who is anyone to say that being addicted to money and success is better? I mean, obviously for your health, potentially, yes. But I mean, like, who are we really to judge? You know, if someone has loads of money and they're not a good person, and but that crackhead has like a really kind heart, like, again, I don't judge. I really, really don't judge. I think that's part of the biggest things a coach needs is you can't judge people. And if you are judging them, you need to do some self-reflection on why you're judging them, because chances are something is triggering you. Yeah.
We measure people through our own standards. So a lot of times, whatever we judge them on is, like you said, something that maybe we judge ourselves on, rightfully or wrongfully. So what do you think is something that now you would look for in a man? If you're going to say 3 things that would be a non-negotiable for you.
Totally. I already know them.
Go for it. Lay it on us.
Number 1 is charming. It really is. Like, charm goes a long way. With me, anyway. Charming. Kind. Kindness goes a long way as well. I think kindness is one of my deepest core values.
Right.
And I realize now also in the last couple years that I distanced myself and removed myself from people who were unkind inherently. So it has to be kind.
Was that distance yourself from men specifically, or friends included, or?
Both.
Both of those? Okay.
Yeah, both. And the third one is funny. Like, humor goes a long way with me as well. I think charming and humor goes together a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really, really not into looks. I'm not really into looks, and I'm not really ageist, because my parents had a 30-year age gap.
No way.
Yeah.
That is sick. That's insane.
Actually, my mother had a 30-year age gap with both of the fathers of her children. She has 2 children with 2 men.
Okay.
So I don't have a problem with age.
Yeah.
My friend was saying, like, okay, if you're not into looks and you're not into age, but would you go out with someone fat?
It's a good point.
It is a good point. And actually, the reason I said no is that I'm so into a healthy lifestyle that I just don't believe that someone who was happy staying obese would be someone who has the same values as me. That saying, if I met someone really fat, and he was charming and kind and generous and all of these wonderful things, and he was really committed to making a change in his life to get healthier and lose that weight, then potentially yes. But someone who was fat and happy with it, it's a bit different, I think.
I hear that. Do you think if you were with somebody who, let's say, wasn't in your opinion, somebody who maybe wasn't on the most attractive side, right, but was charming and intelligent, do you think you would then be more open to being polyamorous, in the sense of being open to other?
No, I don't. I really just don't think looks has anything to do for me personally. Yeah. Years ago, I had a particularly ugly boyfriend. But we weren't together so long. It was maybe 6 months or so, but we had an amazing relationship. It was really, really nice for what it was. Yeah. I'm also all about relationships not having to end on a bad note.
100%.
If you can walk away and just say, you know what, that 3-month relationship was really good. It was really good. And then you can walk away because you can walk away from a 10-year relationship and say, oh my God, I was so miserable for the entire time.
100%.
But then you can have a 3-month relationship where everything is like nice and spicy. But then, I don't know, they move or something.
Yeah, I hear that. I think, to be fair, maybe why that may be harder for some people is because, let's take the 3-month relationship, right? We said earlier about people date on potential. So it's like part of the love for what it is right now is for what it could be.
Yeah.
And then if you eliminate what it could be, you may take away 50% of that love and affection, or intention, I should say. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because if you're like, I'm only open for like a 3-month experience with someone would be like, you're really cool.
Well, I think let's not put like a specific, unless someone really is moving out of the country or whatever. But again, you know what? If someone's moving and it's right, you're going to make it right. You don't just say, I don't do long-term relationships. Maybe it's not your preference. But the truth is, I believe that if the right person comes along and they're moving to, Australia, you're going to make it work somehow.
I did that. That's true.
Exactly. When the right person comes along, vibrate from a frequency where you genuinely believe that someone is going to come along and they're going to make you really happy, and then take the pressure off forever. I had this conversation with my best friend the other day, who happens to be a guy. And I was saying, listen, if we can take forever out of the relationship, then maybe people would have better relationships.
Yes.
And he was saying, well, yeah, but that doesn't work if you want to have kids or if you want to buy a house, because that's, you're looking at the long term.
Yeah.
And it made sense to me as well. I'm like, okay, fair enough. Make plans for sure. But also potentially just realistically look at statistics, even though I hate statistics. Look at the evidence and just, who is it? I think it's the Boy Scouts motto is be prepared. It's Scar from Lion King.
Yeah.
But just be prepared. Be prepared that it might not last forever. Yes. And if it doesn't, then just be happy with what you had.
I agree. So then let me ask you this. Do you agree with prenups then?
Yeah, I think you should have prenup if you have stuff that you don't want to lose.
Yeah.
You should have a prenup.
Yeah.
Protect yourself. I'm a feminist. That doesn't mean that I want a woman to go into court and take all of the man's money when it's blatantly not fair. But I also don't think we can look at the women and just blame them. Let's look at the system that makes that possible.
Of course.
Right? So sometimes I have these conversations and I'm like, yeah, but if you go to a court of law, it's like, yeah, but whose fault is that? It's not the woman. Maybe the woman has a bad moral compass that she wants to take way more than she deserves. Sure. Right? But let's not blame the one shitty woman. Let's look at the system.
Yeah, I think sometimes breakups can be messy. And I think sometimes love can turn to hate. Love and hate are two sides of the same coin. And depending on what happens, if the intense love that you had for someone turns to intense disdain, sometimes people can become vindictive, because we're all capable of that. But if you give someone a lot of power, that can really screw you over. And it's kind of like you said, it's the system. I think that's what, for example, a lot of men are kind of scared of, if that makes sense. Because it's like, she may love and adore me today, But in 10 years time, if things don't work out and she hates my guts, she can ruin my life. And divorce is actually one of the biggest reasons why a lot of men over 40 commit suicide, right? Because they're just devastated in their lives about it. So
this is the wounded masculine, and I have so much time for that. You know, the fact that men's suicide rates in this country are double women's, at least, that is really something to look at and something to try and bring more kindness and compassion to. You know, everyone should protect themselves. You said that, you know, relationships, you know, can end badly, but not just romantic relationships. All relationships can end badly. And I would also say one thing that I have learned, again, from my 1 second in the dating pool, is like, people are scared of the word relationship.
Do you think, is that men and women, or do you think it's men?
I think it's, from what I've seen, it's mainly men. You know, as soon as you say the word relationship, then and it's like, hang on a minute, like, you have a relation. It's the word relationship. Again, look at the language, right? I have a relationship with my children. I have a relationship sitting here with you.
Yes.
And if I am in some sort of entanglement, situationship, or whatever, this is a relationship. Whether it's unhealthy for me, whether you don't want it to be exclusive or whatever, this is a relationship.
Yeah.
People need to understand that booty calls, casual flings, friends with benefits, whatever label you want to put on it, it is still a relationship.
Yeah, you have a relationship with that person.
Exactly.
That's true.
And try and make it a respectful one.
Yeah.
You know, like, you might not want to say something to that person because you think it might hurt them. But you're the bigger person if you can be honest. That, again, like you've said so many 100%. Times, it shows emotional intelligence.
Yes.
And that is priceless.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Do you think, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy?
Oh, I would much rather be. I'd much rather be happy.
Yeah.
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 We don't always have to be right, and what I think is right, you might not think is right, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, again, we all perceive things differently.
Yeah.
You know, we take in things through our 5 senses, and then our brain does some stuff, and then it's like, okay, this is my reality. But my reality might not be your reality.
Yeah.
You know?
I hear that. Do you think it's harder to find commitment today?
What kind of commitment? This is a really good question, actually.
Go on.
And I saw this on Instagram, and it really, really resonated with me. A girl was saying, they're just not committing anymore. Like, it's one thing if I meet someone and they say, you know what, I'm not ready to be in a committed, exclusive relationship. That's fine. That's fine. So what are you committed to? Because are you committed to just having sex? Are you committed to dinner every Friday? Are you committed to getting to know each other via text message because you potentially feel more comfortable talking to someone via an app rather than in person? It happens too.
Sure.
What are you committed to?
Yes.
Because if you say to me, you know, let's go for a walk.
Yes.
Cool. That's what you're committing to.
Yeah.
You know? Talk about these things. Look at the language, and if you want a healthy relationship, don't go into it aimlessly. Have those conversations. This is what I want. This is what I think commitment is. This is what I am able to commit to.
Yes.
What are you able to commit to? Because if people had those conversations right off the back, which is what I did when I briefly went onto a dating app. This is what I want. If we're not on the same page, we're not continuing.
What were those things? What was it? What did you say you wanted?
I said I was looking for non-exclusivity.
Yep.
Look, can I just say, when I went onto the app, I was in a bit of a desperate state, and my friend was like, just go on there and look for a booty call. So potentially I was looking for a booty call. I didn't find it. I went there thinking maybe this space is something I could do.
You went on an app for a booty call and you didn't find it?
I've learned a lot about myself recently. Like, I thought when I left my marriage that I would then go on to be a little promiscuous. I really did. I thought, you know what? Like,
but you could, though.
I could. Yes, I could. But I learned very, very quickly that's just not what I want. I really, really don't. Like, I learned so much about sexual energy exchange last year as well. And I had some yoni healing. I don't know if you know what that is.
I do.
Yes. So I had a very wonderful session with a dear friend of mine called Ria. She's awesome.
Okay.
And yeah, we had a yoni healing session, and I was shocked to find out, actually, no, I'm really, really not into, I don't believe in casual sex anymore. You know, there is an energy exchange.
Yeah.
It is the most intimate thing you can do with someone, and to think that you can have sex with someone and then it doesn't have any repercussions, it's just not true. Maybe I feel more spiritual about it, and maybe it doesn't resonate with some of the young people. They're like, "What? It's just sex. You can just have sex and you can go." I don't believe that anymore.
Do you think it's different for men and women?
No, I don't.
You think sex affects men the same as women?
No, definitely not. Men have a different relationship with sex, and women, it's two completely different experiences that I don't think can even be comparable.
Sure.
You know, the clitoris has like 8,000 more nerve endings than the tip of a penis, or something
jealous.
like that.
I'm so jealous.
You know, so it's just not comparable.
Yes.
We have different experiences because of our sex. We are anatomically, is that the word?
Yeah.
Yes, we are different.
different.
Yeah, we are completely different biologically. Also, you know, when a woman has sex with a man, there is a chemical that is released in her brain that makes her want to connect with that person.
Oxytocin.
Right?
Yes.
Again, we're different.
Yeah.
But sexual energy exchange is equal.
Interesting.
It's the most intimate form of anything. Like when you're really spiritually connected during sex, like that is the bigger picture. Like I don't believe that a guy who goes out and has sex with 200 women can compete with a man who has potentially had maybe only 5 or 6 relationships, but has really, really explored that sexual space with the partners.
I agree. I do agree. Because there is such a thing as cheap sex. So in that sense, because I agree that it is a sexual exchange, but men seem to be able to have more casual, cheap sex easier than women generally. Is that fair to say? Would you agree?
It's fair to say. I think it's the conditioning that we have been brought up in, that it's okay for men to have lots of sexual partners, that in a lot of cases, a lot of cases, it's even encouraged, you know?
Yeah.
But for women, we've been conditioned that it's dirty and it's, you know, shameful. I grew up, again, like I said, you know, with the Indian conditioning, and I had a lot of shame around it. That even after I got married, I would say that there was still an underlining feeling that, you know, there was a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, there was something that lifted. Like when I got married, I was like, okay, now I'm allowed to enjoy it.
Now I can be a rebel for a bit.
You know, like I'm allowed to do this and everything. But now I understand, like it's just the conditioning, and it's that in itself is shameful. The way that men have been conditioned to think that they should have sex with loads of people, and the women have potentially been definitely been conditioned to think that we absolutely shouldn't. The truth is, only you can understand your body, and only you will know, well, if you live more consciously, you will know when sexual experiences make you feel good and when sexual experiences make you feel bad.
Yeah.
Like, I would venture a guess, and I read something and don't remember the exact numbers, but it's a shocking amount of girls who lose their virginity have a bad experience, whereas men usually, I think, have a better experience. It might not have been a long experience. but a lot of girls, you know, a lot of girls have traumatic experiences losing their virginity. And again, like, it's very much what I'm learning at the moment, and what I'm interested in learning about at the moment, the conditionings that we have had with regards to men, women, sex, relationships, all of that.
I would say I hear that, and though I would say today, and maybe it's my generation that I'm given this point of reference from, I feel like it's definitely encouraged for women to go and sleep around and, you know, have sex with a lot of guys, and there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you want to do, fine. But I think the narrative today, especially in the West, is to encourage that behavior.
I think it's encouraging any kind of sexual freedom. But I don't necessarily think that means that girls should go out and have very much promiscuous sex. Maybe it's just because I don't believe that anybody should be having too much promiscuous sex. Like,
yeah, there's too much, of
you
course.
know,
yeah,
it's, and there's one girl who I follow on Instagram who I really like. I think it's Sadia Psychology. Maybe you know her.
That sounds familiar.
She recently did one of the interviews with Andrew Tate, and then she was also on Pearly Things.
Okay, that's probably why.
She's really, really beautiful. I like her. But she was saying that, you know, does body count matter and why? And it does matter, and it should matter to men and women. Because the truth is, if a man has slept with 200 women, I guarantee you the standards have slipped with a lot of those girls, like, because you wouldn't take her to meet your mom, you probably wouldn't take her on a date, you know, she's just for a specific purpose.
Where if he slept with 200 or
yeah, like if a guy has slept with 200 girls, or even if a girl has slept with 200 guys, chances are, like, he probably wasn't that nice. Like, you wouldn't want to date him. I mean, I can't really it's just not really sort of my area. But if you have a high number count, your standards dropped there, unless you're like, you know.
Well, we know that when guys are just looking for, if we talk about guys, when guys are just looking for sex, their standards are much lower than what they would actually have a relationship with. So yeah, like, if, like, to say that every girl that a guy has sex with, he's open to having a relationship with her, it would not be true at all.
But even, like, I mean, I know guys who've had, like, loads and loads of one-night stands, and it's like they were just sloppy, and
I don't really get that
these
either.
like, I don't know. I just feel like I feel the older I get, my time is so precious, and I don't want to have any, like, crap sex. I don't have any crap experiences at all. Like, if I'm not vibing with you, I'm just going to remove myself from the space.
Yeah, but I completely agree. Right, I completely agree. You know, it's kind of like, because in one night you don't get to know their body, you don't get to, you know, it's over some time of getting to know them, having that connection, that you go, okay, this is what makes them tick and stuff, because everyone's different, right?
And that's the turn on, right? Like, those are the experiences that I want anyway, and maybe you want, but maybe 100%. That's because we're emotionally intelligent and maybe a little bit, I appreciate
that compliment.
Like a little bit wiser.
So, to play devil's advocate, let's say a guy is like that, but he slept with 300 women.
I mean, good for him.
But would you say that, okay, his standards have dropped if that's how he's approached every... That's hard.
Well, no, I thought you meant, like, what if there's a guy who slept with 300 women and he didn't lower his standards?
Well, I think... Well, you said body count matters, right? So you were like, okay, if a guy has a body count of that many women, he's probably has very low standards. It's probably slipped off because it's that many. So I'm just asking, and maybe, I don't know how viable it is, but what if the experience we're talking about is how he has been with each woman he's had an encounter with, let's say 2 months each or something like that, maybe even multiple at the same time.
Look, then good for him, right? He's had like 300 amazing experiences. Like, good for him. Kudos, man.
100%. So that wouldn't put you off then?
Okay, so in my 20s and 30s, I sort of was of the opinion that I would prefer to be with a man who'd slept with loads of women, because they've done it all. There's nothing that they need to get off their bucket list, you know, like they've done everything. Yeah. And then they've chosen you.
Gone out of their system.
You know, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right? But now I feel very differently about it. Because I think, oof, you had sexual energy exchange with all of those women. We imprint onto each other. That's what it is. If you look at it from a more spiritual and energetic level.
Yes.
You are potentially, when you have sex with someone, you are opening yourself up to all of their sexual trauma and all of the sexual trauma of all of their past.
Very true.
Past, you know, sexual partners.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So now I feel like, if I met a guy and he'd slept with 200 girls, I think like, like, what was the quality of that sex? And also depending on what kind of man he is.
100%.
I think, like, how did you treat those women? And maybe, again, that's just something I say with age and stuff. And as I get it, when you're in your 20s, you might want to go to, like, Amsterdam and open a couple red doors and then do things with those girls that you would never do in a relationship.
Sure.
But it makes me think, like, now at 40, I'm like, if you're still doing that, what have you... That screams that there's a problem there to me.
Interesting.
Problem. In my perspective.
Something that hasn't been addressed.
But look, maybe you've addressed it and maybe you're fine with it. Maybe you're like, do you know what? I really, really like submissive women and I like being really dominant and I like doing all of that stuff. That is what I am into and I know where it comes from.
Yeah.
And that's my bag, baby.
Yeah.
Fair enough. At least you've explored it. But no, I don't really want that kind of energy.
So I want to touch back on, I agree in terms of what you were saying earlier about, you said that you realize, kind of casual sex just isn't for you, right? And it's about that experience. So does that mean for you, I guess what I would ask is, would you have a quote unquote friends with benefits situation where that is the level of experience you have with the man? Or does it need to be a more committed, exclusive relationship?
No, I think like I can definitely have like a booty call if I want, but that I still have to feel respected.
100%.
I still have to feel special. Like, and that's it. Like, when I'm with you, and it's lovely and amazing. And if I call you, pick up the phone.
Yeah.
And if you can't pick up the phone, then call me back.
Yes.
That's pretty much it.
That's it. Yeah.
Like, I don't like being left on red and stuff like that. Like, no, I don't do that. And if that happens, I'll call you out on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I would definitely have
I hear that.
an arrangement.
Hey, listen, live your life.
Yeah.
Is there something you'd like to bring to the conversation? Anything you'd like to talk about?
Let's see. Another thing that I heard someone say recently, and it's not particularly about relationship, it kind of, the conversation started in relationships and we were talking about successful relationships, and this person kept going back to money.
Right.
And his ground point was that success equals money. And I was so adamantly against this. I was like, that is not true. And he's like, yes, it is, because, I said, I think this is your conditioning, that you see money as success and that is what you're reaching for, which is great, because we should all be, reaching for our goals. And if we want money, that's not a bad thing.
Yes.
But to say that success equals money is just not true, because it's not my perception of it. And he said, all right, well, tell me one example where you had something successful happen and it didn't involve money. Yeah. And I said, well, I have 2 children. I have 2 healthy children. I gave birth to 2 healthy babies.
Very
Boom.
true.
And then he was like, well, but those hospital fees. And I was like, I could have had, listen, I'm very privileged enough that I didn't need to do it in the jungle, but I could have done it in the jungle. And then I said, well, what about the people in the Amazon? They don't need money. And then he was like, yeah, but they would have money if they could. And I was like, no, they couldn't. They're really happy there.
Yeah.
Do you think money equals success?
So, okay. The short answer is no, I don't think money equals success. I think what he was saying is that financial success is a byproduct of success. So it's very hard to say somebody is successful in an industry where they didn't benefit financially, because the financial is a sign of their success. Though what I would say, if we're talking success in life, and I do agree with that aspect of, it's an indicator of success is what I should say, right? It's like, when you said you like a guy who's funny, right? Someone who's funny and charming is an indicator that they have very high social IQ. Does that make sense? So I think that's what money is for success. It's an indicator. Success in life, how I would kind of find success, is when you don't have to trade your time for money. So if you can do what you love,
that's a good one,
in life, right? You do what you love, you do what you're passionate about, and you can earn a living, you're successful. Because you can have a job that you hate, working 9-10 hours a day, 70-hour weeks. You could be earning 800,000. But the truth is, most people only get 5 weeks of holiday a year. So outside of that holiday time, you're hating your life and what you do. Or would you rather earn an average wage, but you're doing what you love? So you don't actually, there's work that comes with it. But when you're not trading your time for money, that's real success in my eyes.
It's like they say that time is the only currency. Is that, yeah.
So that's why, on that, the most valuable thing in the world isn't gold, Bitcoin, whatever it is, it's attention.
Oh, yes. And that
It's
leads
attention.
back to conscious parenting again. Like the attention you spend, that undivided present moment attention that you spend with your child is priceless. They're never going to get it back.
That's it. Yeah, because time, attention, which is time, is the only thing that you can't refund.
I love these.
It's true.
I always say that travel is the only thing that you can spend money on and it makes you richer. Because, like,
that's funny.
So I home educate my children. I don't send them to school. And part of our lifestyle is world schooling because I learned so much growing up being privileged enough to travel a lot. And I believe that my emotional intelligence was raised because of that.
Yes.
Seeing other people, within their culture, different languages, different foods, different traditions, all of that. It's it's such a privilege. It's such a gift. So
100%. And the question I always ask is, if we're talking about success, is or I guess I'll ask this question whether you have a job or career, but if money wasn't a thing, if everything was going to be paid for you, would you still continue to go into work the next day?
I mean, I know I would.
There you go. Well, then, and that's what I would say. That's what a career is.
Can I also say, like, I only figured out what I wanted to do when I was like 36, 37.
Yeah.
That whole idea that you need to have your life figured out, especially for men. And again, this is where I'm so on the men's side of things, that pressure that you have to sort of somehow get your life together by the time you're 25 or that you're 30. Like that pressure is awful,
Yeah.
And there is a lot of proof that shows that most men only reach success between 40 and 50.
Oh yeah,
sure. Like you've matured, you've potentially had a family, you have had many failures or lessons that you were able to, learn from, and then you kind of come into your own.
Yeah.
And how horrible is it that the patriarchy society has made it that, men age like fine wine, but women age like prunes, and when the menopause kicks, we're all dead. Like,
well, I think that's wrong saying when the menopause kicks, you're all dead. But I don't think that came from patriarchy. That came from women.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I'll say that because it's women who express desires for qualities that older men have. That's where it's like men age like fine wine. It's not men that said that, it's women. So because like the sexiest, I think, and we should check this.
Yeah, let's check
but
it.
the at least this is in America, the sexiest man alive for like the past 7-8 years running has been men over the age of 40.
Oh yeah, because I think George Clooney's in it a bunch of times,
Clooney
and Brad is in it as well.
Brad Pitt, I think Idris Elba.
Oh yeah.
These are all men over the age of 40.
Yeah.
So the whole thing that men age like fine wine has always come from women. It's
That's
never
interesting.
come from men.
I feel like I'm gonna go away and Google it.
You should check.
I'm so interested. Like I'm only learning about these things in the last year.
Sure.
Patriarchy and rise of the feminism and all of this stuff.
Yes.
So it all fascinates me. And I have a really, really badass feminist friend who really, really inspires me and gives me lots to think about. So I'm going to ask her about it as well.
Yeah, because I think it's, and we're talking about initial attraction, right? We're not talking about the connection. The connection is the individual spiritual side, right? And it plays a part. But I guess what people are saying is, it's the cliche of, what women tend to look for initially, men acquire as they mature in life. And generally what men are attracted to initially is what women have when they're younger. But there are, and thing is, and this is what I disagree a lot with, like the red pill space. It's like, once a woman reaches 35, 40, like you said, she's dead. And that's not even remotely true.
If you look at, some of the most, some of the oldest indigenous tribes, it's it's the older women who are like the real wise ones within the tribes and stuff. And we all have something special to give as we age, you know? And like I said, I'm not ageist with the relationships I have. I'm also not ageist with my friends. I have people who are 30, 40 years older than me that I would consider friends. And then I have people who are a little bit younger that I now consider friends.
There you go.
You know?
It's so true. It's so true. And I think that, like, I'm an exception because half the women I've dated have been older than me.
I was going to say, like, I wouldn't put it past you.
Yeah.
You're very mature for your age.
I appreciate that. Oh, I appreciate that.
Then maybe you'll go the other way when you're older. Like, I seem to be going the other way now.
Well, for me, it's not about the age. It's about, I value emotional intelligence very highly. So it's about if I'm on a level of frequency with them. So my ex-girlfriend was 4 years younger than me. But my ex-girlfriend before that was 9 years older than me. A woman that I dated, you know, last year, she was like 15, 16 years older than me. And then I've dated girls who are maybe a couple years younger. So for me, it's not the age necessarily. Yeah. And the thing is as well, like, you know, and I say this to guys, like, you know, guys who say, oh, well, you know, younger is more attractive and stuff. I'm like, listen,
but for how long?
If there's a woman, right, and if she's attractive when she's 25, and she maintains that standard, you're not going to go to her when she's 32 and be like, she's not attractive. Like, you see the footballers' wives, right? Like, then they're in their 30s or 40s. You can't tell me that if she put it on you, you would say no. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're an attractive woman, you're an attractive woman. So,
I think men like women who take care of themselves.
100%.
You know, just 100%. Like, I would like to think it's the same the other way around as well. But...
maybe I think looks play less of a part for women than for men.
Yeah, and that's a biological thing as well. Because, initial attraction is more what gets guys into the girl. Yes. Whereas, women look for something else.
I think attraction plays more of a part nowadays because we live in a social media day and age where it's you know, Instagram, even dating apps. Like,
I hear this a lot, and I feel like I'm kind of challenging it because I meet a lot of people, again, maybe it's just like my age and a little bit older, even though we have Instagram and we enjoy Instagram and social media and the filters and stuff like that, we don't, it's not so shallow and about looks. I don't want to say shallow as in, listen, it's a trend as well. The trend and the beauty standards have changed. Yes. And nowadays, you know, there's filler and Botox and like bum lifts and boob lifts and everything that you want, right? Yeah. Those beauty standards will change. Yes. You know, the fad will change, you know, and the girls who had massive boobs will now want smaller boobs, and then, you know, vice versa. That's never going to change. Beauty standards will change, and that we can be sure of. Sure. Right? But my friend said to me with regards to a booty call that a man only has one criteria for a booty call, and it's she has to be attractive. Whereas a woman...
some men don't even have that. Some men don't even have that. Oh, it's like, is she available? Some men are like that. It's true.
You know, I'm going to tell you something. Back in the day when I used to sort of work in pubs in my teens and 20s, they used to have, what was it called? The lads used to have this thing called a hog race.
A hog race?
Yeah, and basically it was like who could pull the ugliest girl that night.
That was that used to be
so awful. I used to laugh at it and think it's funny, and now I think, my God, that is terrible.
She laughed because she had pretty privileged guys. That's why she laughed. She still got it.
It's a thing. I'm aware of it, but yeah, I wasn't in the hog race.
But
I was aware of the hog race. I have loads of guy friends, so I always sort of knew all of the horrid things that they were doing as they went out with lads.
So what were you saying? You were saying that you said for a booty call, for a guy, she just has to be attractive.
Yeah, and for a woman, she has like more, and I can definitely say that for me as well, because I would have a booty call, but you do have to meet certain criteria.
I think in regards to appearance, I think if it's a booty call, I think a woman's standards are much higher than what she would take for a relationship.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Because she's like, I'm only in it for the physical.
That's true.
Right?
It kind of makes sense to me too, actually.
It's true because of how...
I would rather have a hot booty call than...
Why would you not?
Yeah.
Like, you'd be like, well, I'm going to go for the hottest guy who I can get because it's just a physical thing. And, you know, the kind of reality is, you know, as women, you can use sex to get access to men that maybe for a relationship that might not work. But
it's also a currency.
It's a currency.
It is a currency. Sex is a currency, and
It's a
prostitution is
currency.
the oldest
It's the
career in the world.
It's the oldest profession.
Yeah.
It's the oldest profession. How do you think, you said that you're a feminist, etc. How do you think feminism has played into dating dynamics today?
I have to say, I'm really not the person to answer that question. I am right at the beginning of my feminist journey.
Okay.
And I just don't feel like I have enough knowledge on the subject to talk about it. But what I will say is I really, really feel like the word, again, I really, really go back to NLP and what words mean, and at their basic core, what are they? Feminism is about equality.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people throwing the word around just don't really understand it. I think some men are put off by a woman who says that she's a feminist.
Yeah, very true.
I have to say the feminists that I know, their men are the most kind, most intelligent, most secure within themselves men that I know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't feel like I can really answer that enough. I just don't know enough. But if I come on in a year,
do it.
We will have much more to talk about, because the speed that I learn and the speed that I am so passionate about educating myself on human behavior and relationships in general, I'm learning so much more all the time. So to be continued another time.
I hear that. And I guess the one thing I would say is I think the reason a lot of men, might be like, oh, she's a feminist or something, is because of what feminism is portrayed as today, at least in the West. And
again, it's misconstrued. People need to strip it back.
I agree. Because I think it's like, if you say feminism about equality, I think I'd like to say 100%, but I would say at least 99 or 95% of people are for equality. And it's proven that a society does better the more equality it has, because because it means we can exploit everyone's talents to the highest degree.
It's all about exploitation and manipulation. And
well, I don't mean it like that, but I mean, like, if you're an incredible engineer as a woman, right, but you don't have the opportunity to grow, when you in an environment where you do have the opportunity to grow, you bring incredible value to the market. So like it's in everyone's best interest for equality.
Manipulation isn't always bad, and we all do it. Again, it's like a spectrum.
How much do you think we manipulate?
I mean, look, what is
flirting
kind of manipulation? Like I'm
charming.
putting forward my most charming aspect. And that same person who I was talking to, he said to me that basically, if a man sleeps with a woman, he has got what he wanted. But if a woman wants the relationship from that man, it is her job to then basically convince him, because he has what he wants, the sex. And now for him to stay in a relationship with her or enter into a relationship with her, she has to basically.
So essentially, I think, to put succinctly what he's trying to say is, women are the gatekeepers for sex and men are gatekeepers for relationships.
It makes sense to me, but I felt very depressed walking away from that conversation, because I said to him, I'm like, hang on a minute. So I have sex with a guy and I like him.
Yeah.
And now I want a relationship with him. So I'm just going to literally put on a facade of my best self on my best days with my best clothes and look my best and act my best, so I can manipulate him into thinking that I'm the perfect relationship.
Well, I mean, the other side is men put on their best selves so they can have physical intimacy with a woman.
I don't want any of that.
No one should lie. But what I'm trying to say is, we said about manipulation, right? And obviously, if you're interested in someone, yes, the driving factor for a guy to take an interest in a woman is the physical aspect. That doesn't mean he's not open to getting to know her and connect with her. But if he's into a woman, he's going to put his best foot forward, because he knows that in order to have that physical intimacy with her, because the thing is, with guys, they'd have sex with a girl within 2 minutes that they meet them. It doesn't take that much.
We're talking about physical intimacy here, and I'm more interested in understanding about a relationship, like.
But I'm saying the other side is the relationship side is, because think women set the sexual pace, men set the emotional pace, and it's the emotional.
That's interesting.
It's the emotional investment that leads to the relationship.
Say that again. It's the women who set the
sexual pace, and the men set the emotional pace. So usually a guy is ready to have sex sooner than the woman, but usually it's the woman who's ready for the emotional depth, connection, relationship, commitment before the man.
I feel like if some women could understand that you could have emotional depth without the exclusivity and committed relationship, again, maybe women would feel less pressure to, I need a boyfriend, I need a man, I need a husband, I need all of that, you know?
I agree. And that should come in the dating. But I think it's like, so for an example would be, you know, I've heard a lot of women will be like, oh, he's not opening up to me. Like, how can I get him to open up? How can I help him? How can we continue to grow this emotional connection? Because I feel like he's slower than me.
Well, these are the if you don't have the sticky conversations in relationships, you won't have fulfilling relationships.
Yes.
You know, so again, if I could tell anyone something good about dating is just, you know, create a space with someone where you can have those safe conversations without judgment. And sometimes maybe it's better to have someone mediate there. I'm not against that either.
Yeah.
You know, but if you want deep and meaningful relationships, there are sticky areas to go through, but it's worth it. You know, intimacy is worth it.
Yeah, of course, of course. If we're talking intimacy and sex is different. It is different. You know, we talked about earlier. You said your male friend about he seems very fixated on money and financial and having that as a man to get the woman and stuff. Can you see why? And while I don't entirely disagree with him, though I do disagree with his outlook on why and what it's meant to facilitate, and maybe even how going about it. But can you understand why maybe it seems men have a fixation on that?
On money?
Well, on being financially successful.
I think it's the plight of man that he's meant to provide financially. And men are still within that cycle. You know, the truth is we should all provide for each other. And there are relationships now where the woman might earn more and the man isn't emasculated by that, you know?
Yes, I think I agree. But I think that cycle is there because that's what a lot of women require of him, even if she makes her own.
That's sad.
It's just the way it is.
You know, yeah, and I'm learning that there are a lot of sad aspects to, I mean, there are so many sad aspects about our conditioning, but how the sad aspects of our conditioning then inherently roll on into our relationships, that's even more tragic.
Yeah.
You know, because the relationships are what we're dealing with, and all of that sticky stuff that has gotten in the way of our true essence of being in a loving, caring relationship. You know, money can, so the four things that are the worst, the four things that are most problematic in marriages are sex, money, death, and children. Those are the four things, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's right.
Yes.
But, you know, again, money causes massive problems in relationships, you know. It's something that needs to be talked about because I think too many couples, I'm sure so many men feel the pressure, you know, and then the women feel the pressure at home. They're trying to run everything at home. The man is trying to pay for everything, you know. Let's look at the men's point of view for a moment. I mean, think about it. You're going to work, let's say a 9 to 5 or a 9 to 7 or 8 or 9, and you're not seeing your kids.
No.
Like, you get to see your kids on the weekend and like play football, and like then your kids are at school.
Yes.
And then the only time that you really get to spend quality time with your children is when you take them on holiday that you needed to pay 3 times the price for because you couldn't go when they, you know, were in school.
Yes.
because you're fined and stuff. And then what do you want to do on your holiday? Like, you work hard for your family all the time, and sometimes you just want peace and quiet, and you don't want to hang out with your kids and your family all the time. You know, I get it.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like, again, this is a space where people need to talk about relationships. What do you want in your relationship? How do you want the relationship to evolve? What are you going to provide for our family? What am I going to provide? And how do we make it fair? You know, and if everything can be flexible, people are too regimented, thinking the men need to earn the money and the women need to stay at home. Let's make it flexible and let people find a space that works for them.
I agree.
We need to spread the word.
I agree. I think the where there's contention is that a lot of men won't even have the opportunity to enter that realm of being with a woman and having a family if they don't provide to a certain level of value. And I think that's why men can seem so fixated on it, because men, you know, you said about, you know, you're learning a lot of sad, harsh truths. Mm-hmm. Men learn this very early on in life, very early on when they get into the world. You know, like, for example, you know, you get the 21-year-old young guy who's at university who likes this, you know, girl in his class, and let's say she's an attractive girl, and he wants to take her out and stuff, but she's getting attention from the 30-year-old who has his own place, has his own dog, can take her on nice holidays, etc. And you know what we were saying earlier? They don't know each other. We're just going on the what's on paper, white, right? Who is she going to give an opportunity to? And 9 times out of 10, she's choosing the guy who's just further on in life because he's more confident, etc. All of this stuff. So men learn very quickly, because there's a barrier to entry. He can be the most amazing guy, but if he's not on his shit, a lot of women won't give him an opportunity. So I think that's why it's for your friend or whatever. While I agree with you, it's not all about that, and money doesn't buy you happiness or whatever. But because there's a barrier to entry for men are like, okay, well, as long as I reach this barrier, then I can focus on working on the aspects of myself that are going to help facilitate a great relationship. Yeah. But there's no point being great at a relationship if you can't even get into one. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I empathize with the men who go through that. And like I said, it is the plight of man, you know, and I, as a feminist, I see it and I acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And, you know, the woman's plight is different.
Sure.
You know, we have our own things. And I come from a place where I'm not trying to bash men in any way by saying that they don't have it difficult, especially certain ethnic groups or skin colors that obviously have it way harder.
Yeah, we all have our struggles, women too. It's just different.
Yeah,
just different.
Exactly. I think if you can have a relationship with someone that understands that, again, it's like half the battle. You know, like, understand where I'm coming from and I understand where you're coming from. Honest, open communication is great, but comprehension is even better.
I like that.
Right? Because if you're like, I recently had an experience where I was telling everything. I was being very open and honest, and the communication was definitely there, but the comprehension wasn't there.
Okay.
And that's fine. Again, I'm mature enough to understand that is how you perceive things. This is how I perceive things.
Yeah.
There's no room for disrespect or
takes courage, I think. Takes courage to
yes, it does. And if you want that intimacy and if you want those good relationships, it does take courage. It takes courage. And another thing I really learned about myself is I am not scared to be vulnerable. And I think a lot of men are. Yeah. Because again, with your conditioning, you're told predominantly not to cry, not to show your emotions, to man up, and all of those things. And the harsh truth is that there's a little boy within all of you that potentially is, no, not potentially, that is still wounded by something, and he needs to be acknowledged. He needs to be healed 100%. Because you're just going to take it further into other relationships.
No, I love it when we, you know, just let the conversation flow and see where it takes us, because there's so many different things in our lives that are going to play into the relationships, whether that's friends or romantic, and what we want. One thing I want to ask you as well before we wrap up is, you know, you said we should have a conversation about what is it that you want, etc., etc. Do you think that if two people are about to enter a relationship, they should sit down and go, okay, this is what I want from you and the other person says. So like, for example, I'm just using these examples, they could be shallow, right? For example, let's say the woman goes, okay, what I want from you is I want you to cover all the bills, right? And he might go, okay, I want you to sounds so
cook
stupid.
and clean every day.
No, I want head twice a week.
Okay, all right.
Do you know what I mean?
We're going there.
Like, and I don't mean literally laying out like that, but do you think two people should sit down and say like, look, these are the things that I want within a relationship, or these are the things that I want
think it is
from you?
absolutely vital. I really do, and I see that now. Like, you know, if you want to go with the flow, that's fine.
Yeah.
But where are we going?
Where are we going?
Like, I kind of like to know where I'm going. I don't get on a plane and just like go to anywhere. I like to have a plan.
Yes.
You know, and I'm 40 and I have a business and I have children. Like I would like to have a plan. I like to know things.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, and we have said today so many times, time is precious. My time is really, really precious. And you know how you said like, oh, well, you know, you have the initial spiritual sexual connection. It's not just a spiritual connection. It's sort of the neurology in your brain. So like certain things in your brain are firing when his brain is firing, and then you're feeling all of these lovey-dovey feelings, and that's great. But actually those things will fade over time.
Yes.
And if you are looking for a long-term commitment, and again, you know, like I feel like there are women out there, at least there were, you know, when I were in my 20s and 30s, and I'm sure there are still out there. There are these women who are like, okay, want to get married, want to have a baby, want to do this, want to have a house.
Yes.
So you can't go with the flow then.
No, that's
and
true.
There is nothing wrong with saying to a guy within the first couple days, this is actually exactly what I want. If you don't want it, then that's fine. Then we don't need to waste each other's time. You're very attractive. I had a really nice dinner. It was really nice to meet you. Bye. Yeah. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're nowadays, we have so many things on the criteria list. Like I said, you have to be this, you have to be that, you know, you have to be emotionally intelligent. You have to have your own place. You have to have money. You have to have nice parents, you know, all of these things. And it's like, okay, so what? You want all of those things, but you don't actually want to sit down and ask for those things. Or you don't want to sit down and actually say, you know what, besides the money, the house, and all of this, I want to feel real sexual intimacy. I want to have a deep, meaningful friendship with you. I want us to raise our children in a consciously, you know, parenting environment.
Yes.
These are deep conversations that any woman should have. Besides, I want you to pay the bills.
Before,
you know, like it's not about those superficial things. And if you base your relationship on those superficial things, I guarantee you're not going to have deep and meaningful relationships.
100%.
You know, so yes, it might be uncomfortable and it might be out of the norm for you to have those conversations. You might feel very, you know, out of character to say to someone on a first or second date, do you want children? You know, what's your relationship with your parents? Okay,
that's a really good question. I always advocate for that one. Yeah,
you know, like these are the questions that you should want to talk about, and the right guy will want to talk to you about those things. The wrong guy will be like, why are we talking about that shit? Yeah. No, like we're talking about that because it means something to me. Do you want to get to know me, or are you just trying to have a quick fling? Those are also available out there.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it's setting the precedent of, this is the way, this is my intention moving forward.
These are my standards.
The same page as me.
Yeah.
I hear that. Listen, Shorty, we could talk to you all day. I could talk to you all day. Thank you so much for
I hope I haven't been too chatterboxy.
No, this is why you're here. You're here because, you know, we want to pick your brain and have these discussions. Where can they find you? Where can we find you? So,
my business is called The Why Practice. That's and then like the letter Y Practice. Nice. And I'm on Instagram. And I'm also, my personal page is Shorty Devi _, which is SHORTYDEVI _ And yeah, if anybody is out there and they need some support with, you know, their values and...
Or if you want to take on a date, innit? Just drop her a DM.
No dates.
I'll just play. No, thank you so much for sharing your energy with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Guys, go show us some love. Go check out her page. Give her a follow. Give her a few likes. You know, do it for me. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you in the next episode. Pow.